Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. For sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. ReadswithRosa podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educator spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, taking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. And rock with me and get down to this new jam. With my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out. Welcome to the ReadswithRosa podcast. You know, I was chatting to my team about today's guest, and they all spoke about him with so much respect and admiration in regards to his musical talents and the skills that he brings to the table as a creative. But most of all, what they love is that he is just a cool guy. He is a digital content producer based in Auckland, New Zealand, with a focus on cinematography and video production. I'm so excited, can you tell, to introduce to you today Canaan Ene. Yeah, I probably need to in a clapping button, huh? Anyways, yay! Hi, Canaan. How are you, bro?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It's been cool to watch you streaming all the way from Japan.
Stop it right now, man, bro. How are you and your family? Like, how are you coping? You know, obviously we're still in the middle of a pandemic. Like, how are you coping?
Yeah, thankfully, it's been all good for us. God's been gracious to us, and we've been managing. Where I live in a household of 7 people, so it gets a bit hectic sometimes. But I think when it hit level 3, as soon as I was allowed to come to the office, I was like, "Yo, later, bro."
Yes, I think I remember seeing something, and I was like, okay.
But we've been all good. Everyone's still working or studying, and I just taking the punches as they come, rolling with the punches.
Man, bro, it's honestly, like I said, it's so good to have you here. It's such an honor to have you in this space. I know I said already, I've said a little bit about what you do, but if you could just maybe just reintroduce yourself, or really just your cultural roots, perhaps your villages and who you're ripping today.
Yep, cool. Yeah, so my name is Canaan Ene. I am 23 years old, living in Manirewa, South Side. My parents are Samoan. My mum is from... Where's my mum from? My mum is from Saliaula in Savai'i. My dad is from Malie and Leauva'a. Growing up in New Zealand, we weren't too connected to our Samoan roots, but we'd go over every now and then. And I think only recently we've been really digging through our ngafa with my dad. He's been actually just in this lockdown, he's been piecing together our family tree. So that's kind of been good. Raised Christian, still a Christian. Like I said, I'm in a household of 7, so there's my 3 sisters, and my parents, and also my nana living with us. So I do, like you said, digital content, I guess is probably a summary of what I do. So videography, photography, editing, Photoshop. I do a little bit of music and audio production as well. Been doing it for the last 5 or so years. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Man, can I just mention again, everyone, this guy's only 23 years old, and he's like, the past 5 years. I'm like, what? This is honestly, man, this is why everyone, they have so much respect and admiration for you, man. We're going to get there. We're going to get through your story. But I know you mentioned, shout out to your parents, to your family. Your mom and dad, they're in the ministry, they're in the ministry. They lead a church. In terms of your upbringing, what was that like? What was that like for you growing up in the church?
Yeah, I think
your role in the ministry.
Yeah. I guess growing up with being a pastor's kid. So my parents are pastors out in Manirewa. It's probably I don't know how else to describe it other than it was just normal. That was my normal. So I guess it was only once I started going to school, or maybe even intermediate or high school, where I started to notice people aren't not everyone is raised in church. So that was sort of like a bubble that was popped in my teen years. But it's been all good. I mean, it's all I've ever known. My parents are also business owners as well, so got a bit of exposure to not only like the ministry side, community engagement, but also uh, like business and running business and socializing with people in terms of negotiating stuff as well. So um, yeah, sorry, that doesn't really answer your question, but yeah, it was just normal to me. That was just
Yeah.
my upbringing. In
That's
terms of church, I think my parents were kind enough not to place any too much pressure on me. Just for a bit of context, my mom is a third generation pastor's kid, and my dad is
mm,
a third generation pastor's kid as well. So that's sort of our lineage. So I guess they know what it's like to grow up as the kids of ministers. So they were they raised us in a way where we didn't feel pressure to involve ourselves in church, but that we sort of volunteered out of our own free will. So yeah, now I'm still serving in church. Currently leading the worship team, praise and worship team. Um, yeah, yeah. So that's me.
and are you a singer? I mean, well,
Nah, nah, nah.
well,
So the way,
I mean, naturally, growing up in the church, you're
yeah.
leading praise and worship team. Were you, were you always? I guess what I'm saying was, were you always kind of behind the scenes, like leadership from behind the scenes, or were you in? Are you in the band? Were you up
Yeah.
there singing? Were you performing, or were you more like leadership behind the scenes?
A bit of both. Yeah, I played in the band. I still play in the band at church. But I think I took on a lot of other like behind the scenes roles. So I was at one point serving in like the media ministry that we had at church. Focusing on all our video stuff. I was a youth leader once as well. Um, so yeah, it's been a bit of a mix of like serving behind the scenes, but also fronting some of the ministries. Yeah, and still fronting and serving behind at the same time.
That is, man, bro, that's so cool. You mentioned school air. So it's interesting to hear you talk about the role in church that you have, and I'm thinking, oh yes, or videography and making content. I feel like perhaps a lot of that is influenced from your role, in the
Yeah,
church. But when
yeah,
you
yeah.
were at school, like when you were going through like high school, were you even thinking about content? You were creating content, or were you like a sports person or performing? What were you like in school? Just to
Yeah.
kind of,
So,
you know.
so I went to two high schools, and I think at my first high school, I went to Papatoe High for the first 3 years of my high school.
Mm.
And when I was there, people knew me as the music guy. So I guess
Oh.
like taking everything that I learned through church. Obviously, there's no piano player, so I have to step up and learn piano on YouTube and stuff. I guess that's. And it comes back to like, man, churches are mean as like training ground for like creative arts. Even though I mean that's not the reason why church exists, but it is
Mm,
like a great byproduct of being a part of a church community.
mm,
So yeah, at PEP, I was probably like known as the music guy. We had like a studio, and I'm not very sporty. I guess my music abilities compensate for my lack of hand-eye coordination. Um,
yeah, man,
so
these stereotypes they have of PISA, cut that out, man. Come on.
let's just say I was at my second school, Kings. We were
Mm.
forced to go to join a sport, and I was in. Not only was I in the second 15, I was in the second 15B team. So that sort of paints a picture of my athletic ability. But yeah, so I moved from Pep to Kings, and I think I still did music, but I focused a lot more on media, so media studies. And again, drawing from like my experience with church, um, our church is sort of unique in a sense that we transitioned from a predominantly Samoan speaking church to an English church, and with that, I think we took inspiration from a lot of Palangi churches in the way that we do church. So like playing videos and creating videos for like events like Christmas and Easter and stuff. And being the pastor's kid, it was my dad's role to sort of make that stuff that sort of we worked on together. And so, yeah, taking all of that media experience from church, I put that into work in high school as well. Yeah, that sort of paints a picture for me in high school.
So career pathways, because you're 23 and you said for 5 years now you've been creating visual content and so forth, digital content. So does that mean by the time you got to the end of high school, you were kind of already like, this is the path that I want to take in terms of a career, like building your own brand
Yeah.
and kind of putting yourself out there? Like, I feel like it was just a natural progression, right? Like you were eventually going to get to that point.
Yeah, I think so. I was sort of freelancing at the end of high school. I did my first wedding in year 12. It was for a friend of a cousin, so it wasn't even a relation. Flew down to Wellington to shoot the wedding, and we got paid $400. And I was like, yo, $400, yo. Even though that was like, I worked on it for like 8 weeks. So $400 spread across 8 weeks, it's not that much. But like in my head, $400 to a 16-year-old is like, yeah, this is mean. So I think from there, that sort of springboarded like, oh, if I can do this for $400, like I could make mean money. So yeah, I think towards the end of high school, I sort of had an idea of what I wanted to do. But it was really just about how do I get there? What are the means or what are the things I need to learn to be able to do this full time? And so I enrolled in AUT. I think uni was just a natural progression for, you're sort of expected to go to uni. So I enrolled into AUT to do communications, which is sort of touches on those areas of creativity, so like film production as well as media and journalism, and throughout my years at AUT, I was freelancing at the same time, and I just sort of found that I was getting a bit too busy for uni with all the gigs that I was doing. So I graduated voluntarily, and just decided to do this like full time. In 2017, I think. Yeah.
I'm just speechless right now. I'm like, this guy, I just graduated voluntarily. Who does that? Oh, Canaan does that. Honestly, bro. So you're your own boss, right?
Yep.
Tell us what it's like, in terms of, because you mentioned that mom and dad, they're business owners, and I guess you've learned a lot of entrepreneurial skills, managing and things like that from them. How much of an influence in terms of like, your brand have you gotten from mom and dad? Like what are some like things that they have taught you, like now that you have your own brand, you're your own boss?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so if you ask my parents, I'm probably not the most obedient child, but I definitely did they ask you to put that question in or no?
No, I was like, what would mom and dad say?
No, I think I don't. It was less the verbal advice and more of being able to see what they've been able to achieve, and the people they've been associated with. So my parents, in 1999, my dad founded Radio Samoa. And so just being exposed to my dad's world, my parents' world, in terms of media and the connections that they have, I think it was quite, don't tell them, but it was quite inspirational. And so, and so, yeah, I think the advice has been more, or the things that I've been able to take with me into my entrepreneurial journey or my business journey is just being able to see that this is something that we can do, not just specific people, but anyone can make it in this world. And so I think that's sort of what I've learned from them. Obviously, like um, they've been able to help, here and there with their advice. So I'd ask them, how much am I supposed to charge for this? Stuff like that. But yeah, but they've been really helpful in that sense. I think
Mm,
it took a bit of convincing at first because my parents didn't go to uni,
mm,
so they've sort of had to learn all of this stuff the hard way. So I think from especially my mom's perspective, it didn't make sense for me to drop out of uni.
mm,
But I think they sort of see where I'm at now
mm,
and yeah, can understand that I think times have changed a little bit. But yeah, they're fully supportive now of what I'm
mm.
doing. Oh, that makes it sound like they're against me, but like they're
No,
on board.
no,
If that makes
man.
sense. Yeah.
Like I feel you, right? Like
Mm.
I think we know our parents and just where our parents come from. That dream to provide a future for their children, and
Yeah.
like everything you're saying, it makes sense because uni is the ultimate goal. Going to university, our parents dream about that, and then
Yeah.
but I love how you've said. I love how you're talking about this because I feel like you're an example of someone who said, hey, you know what, I am going to drop out, but then continued on a different path, and
Yeah.
now I mean, I know you're young, but man, age is nothing because you are successful. I mean, people, they admire you and love the work you do. That you've got people older than you who are like kind of like acknowledging, yo, man, this young dude right here is the man. Like he is out there doing what he's doing. He's his own boss. I mean, bro, that's when you get that kind of like when you hear that from I guess from your fellow creators. I mean, that must be you must be doing something right. So I think it's
Nah,
cool. I
thank you.
love that you've
Yeah.
you've talked about mom and dad. But tell us about being your own boss though. Do you have a schedule? What is it like? Are you like, I'm going on my coffee run now. I'm just gonna pop out
Yeah.
for a bite.
Yeah.
What's that
So 4:30 a.m. in the morning. I'm still asleep. But nah, there's guys who like say wake up early. But I think for a while I tried it, like
like?
waking up early, committing to a schedule. But I think at least with like creative stuff, that's hard. That's hard to sustain,
Mm,
especially like sometimes you're lying awake at night and idea comes to you at like 3 a.m. in the morning. So um, I think with the kind of work that I do, um, a schedule doesn't necessarily work, but it is about being flexible. Um,
mm,
I think one of the things I found is like um, it's actually way easier and I guess more productive if someone's like hanging over your shoulder telling you what to do. But man, when you have to like come up with your own ideas for a project and like that's just the execution, but even like managing your money and your all of your business acumen, man, it's hard. It is hard work, and I'm just like forever watching YouTube videos. Um,
love
like
it.
even though it's all in like American business space, but try and translate it into New Zealand space. I mean, there's some cool resources out there now,
Mm,
like Digital Boost, which is like a New Zealand platform for like help with business.
mm,
Just giving them a free plug, and also Manaki. There's some two cool digital platforms that can help with business growth. But yeah, it's all like I think I'm someone who learns from being burned. Hey, if I make a mistake, I know I'll never do it again.
mm,
Or if I find what works, then I'll stick to it. So
mm,
I think these last 5 years, and I'm still learning, still figuring out like what's the best business path for me, and being my own boss. Yeah, it is about like um, making mistakes and learning from them, and just like forever improving.
mm.
So right now, in terms of being my own boss, I mean, I think I think Jacinda's my boss at the moment, and can't do much.
How you know what? It's just on that, bro. How I mean, projects being cancelled? Are there ways in which you're able to um work on a project in that level, like on level 3, or are you fully like shut down right now?
Yeah. Well, I'm sort of transitioning out of wedding videography. So
Okay.
that was my main source of income, like at the beginning of last year, and
Mm.
more moving into like DOP work. So
Okay.
yeah, ad campaigns and things like that. So
Mm.
I've been quite fortunate that we've had a few cancellations, especially during level 4 earlier this year, uh, well 2 months ago.
Mm.
Um, but we've picked up some work with some essential work in level 3, so which has been good. So it's keeping me busy, um, and yeah, just trying to grab as much work as I can during this lockdown. Because you never know, might go
Right.
into level 4 again and then have to
Right.
apply for wage subsidy again. But no,
This,
it's been all good.
you know, because I mentioned in the beginning, Canaan, you have created visual content for digital content for local and global companies, right?
Yep.
Agencies and whatnot. Um, what has that experience? What has that experience been like for you? I mean, do you know what I mean? Yeah, what has that experience been like for you, especially global companies?
Yep. Yeah. So I think it's cool to compare like working experience within New Zealand and overseas. Um, I've done a few projects for like a power company in San Francisco.
Mm,
Um, but it's kind of cool to see the, I guess, the expectation of what a locally minded business expects, and then what versus what a globally minded business expects. And I think
mm,
that's sort of in my head where I'm thinking of in terms of trajectory.
mm,
Um, I was chatting to a fellow videographer the other day about his work experience in New Zealand versus living in New York. And he was saying like New Zealand is so small. He was saying that New Zealand's not only small but small-minded, and I guess that's just a product of
mm,
our environment. So I think working with companies overseas and also chatting to colleagues and fellow friends who are also working with companies overseas, there's a whole nother market that we haven't tapped into yet.
mm,
Um, Last year I went to a business networking event just after level 4, and they said it was a Pacifica one, and one of the cool things he said was like um, all of the money that Pacific business owners generate, it just goes in a circle. So,
mm,
if we're Pacifica owned, only Pacifica will buy from them.
mm.
And so that's why, the wealth status, or, the financial status of all those people, because it's just money circling around the
Right.
same people there. So I think that really opened my eyes to like, yeah, there is a whole nother untapped market overseas um,
Mm,
that could stimulate wealth or stimulate growth. Um, so yeah, it's been quiet the last 2 years in terms of international work. Had a bit of work with Greenpeace Australia at the
wow.
beginning of this year, but just COVID, it's sort of cancelled everything. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what's out there online. Um, and like, man, social media plays a massive role in working with artists from overseas. Sorry, with companies overseas and
Mm.
also artists. So yeah, that's been cool. Like just being posting like TikTok videos and stuff
Yeah.
to like reach out to artists and so we can collab on some music. But yeah, I quite like working with people from overseas because it's like people you're not familiar with at all. Like you go into meetings and you don't have any um, prejudice or bias against them
Right.
because you don't know them at all. Like
Right.
um, so yeah, I guess that's
You
what
know,
it's been like for me.
when companies hire you, do you are they hiring you with they've already got the concept in mind and you're just kind of there to I guess finish it off, or do you get some creative input?
Yeah.
What's kind of like the deal with you in terms of your services to these companies?
Yeah, I think I've sort of just taken everything as they come. So if they have an idea that they'll make a space for me to execute, then I'll be happy. Or if they've got no idea what they
Okay.
want to do, but they want to put out something with me, yeah, we'll come up with a plan together. I'm quite flexible in that sense.
Mm.
Um, I think I'm not that big enough to tell them what to do. um,
Really? Really? You're not that big? Come on now.
but but yeah, so I'm always like in a collaboration sort of mindset with people that I work with.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that's actually been, I think, perhaps it's like a unique point for me because a lot of people don't like to collab in terms of
Right.
ideation, and planning. And but I mean, it's just always been like that. Maybe that's something from, I don't know, growing up Samoan or church. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just always been collaborative.
That's so cool, man. Who are some creative? I know you were talking about, when you're dealing with overseas clients, it's nice to be in a different space. But for you personally, who are some creatives or artists that have influenced your work? Behind the camera, or just the narrative that you're putting out there. Do you have some role models and
Role
around the work that
models.
you do?
Yeah. I think there's definitely some trailblazers.
Mm,
Especially like from where we're from in New Zealand. Samson Rambo is one of them. He's an Otara filmmaker, and man, I've been following him for years. And it was cool to finally collab with him last year on an art project that we had. But I think the coolest thing about social media is like a lot of my heroes or inspirations I've actually never met, but I just
wow.
follow their work. So when it comes full circle that I get to work with them eventually, man, that's like it's buzzy. Like Landy's one of them. We met on Twitter, your brother. We met on Twitter and we are buzzing out over something musical. I can't remember something like yeah, I can't remember. Um, and then we ended up working. So like I think that's probably the coolest thing. Matt's another one. I met Matt Fayumu when I was year 10. He came into our school, did a bit of mentoring around music production, and we had a studio at school. So he was sort of teaching us the ropes, showing us the ropes. He was recommending to us like sources to watch and like different YouTubers that can like help
Mm,
us with like video production or sorry audio production,
mm,
um, and all of that stuff like inspires me to like want to pursue that stuff myself. Whenever I see someone doing something mean,
mm.
um, yeah, those are things that I cling to. Yeah, those are the three that I can think of on top of my head. Some other like international people. Oh man, there's actually so many I can think of right now. Um, yeah, there's a lot of talent that comes out of South Auckland, and I'm sort of just inspired by the art that comes out of where I'm from. Um, yeah,
Yeah, thank you for mentioning South Auckland.
I know you're a
Because
Westie, so
oh no, come on now. Oh, no, honestly, it's so true what you say. There is so much talent that comes out of South Auckland, and especially in the performing arts and music.
yeah,
And I love that you are connecting through social media with overseas clients and just creatives, because there is so much talent in South Auckland. I just want it to spread. You know, there's in terms of Pacific Islanders in Auckland. I mean, even out west, I just want people to branch out.
yeah,
I like, it was interesting how you were talking about the circle thing. Businesses just going in. It's just this round circle. Things are going. It's the same people that people are
yeah,
selling to, our own people. But in terms of talent, in terms of business, I would love to see Pacifica creatives, musicians just really branch out. And
harder.
there's a whole wide world around, like, out there, man. And um I see some of the amazing shows that are put on, performing arts, and I just want, obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic, but I would love to see them touring, when the
Yeah,
world, when borders open up, and just really taking Pacifica, taking, our people, taking South Auckland, West Auckland, wherever, taking it to the world, because people don't even know, man. There's
yeah,
just
harder.
so much there. And so then when I see someone like yourself, just really putting yourself out there and connecting with so many different people, that's cool, man. And your story, I hope, is going to inspire others. Even if they're not in digital design and things like that, creating content, but with it, in other areas of the arts, like I hope that your story resonates, and I hope that they can look at that and go, hey man, this is inspirational. This brother here has inspired me. Maybe this is the first step I need to take in order
Yeah.
to just really the world is so big, and I
Yeah,
just feel like
harder.
sometimes we limit ourselves to our backyard, and we
Yeah.
don't need to do that, because we know, like I know our people are just super super talented, so
Yeah.
have so much to give, bro. On that, on social media, how you're connecting, like are you confident when you're putting your content out there on social media platforms? Because in terms of cancel culture, not that you're putting any crazy stuff out there, but what I'm saying is that
Yeah.
like Twitter, people always have some kind of judgment.
Yeah.
How easy or difficult is it for you to say, hey, this is me pushing my content and my brand out there? Is that something that you do happily and confidently, or are you very kind of like, okay, I'm very wary of certain platforms and how that could affect you, like?
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean. I sort of, I think it's not even intentionally, but
Mm,
my like my work profile, so like Instagram,
mm,
and Facebook, I don't really post anything outside of work.
mm,
Um, so it's just mainly work related content, or on my TikTok, my TikTok has mainly been like entertainment value,
right.
because I know that what's it called? I know that as a Christian, I mean, you know, people take sound bites. People live with sound bites, and so it's easy to misconstrue words, to mince what I say. I might talk for half an hour, and people take 30 seconds of what I say, and twist it. It's sort of just the world that we live in, and I think like everyone's guilty of it. Like
Mm,
literally everyone online. So I guess I'm maybe just subconsciously
mm.
aware of that in my work profiles. I mean, Twitter, I just tweet whatever I want.
Yeah, you're just like,
You've probably seen.
yeah, on that, just kidding.
You can hit me up after this.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, and I think I sort of started posting like a bit of controversial topics on TikTok. But yeah, I'm not too scared. Um, I'm quite secure in like what I believe, but I'm
Mm,
also like open
mm,
to rationalizing positions, working through um ideas, because at the end of the day, everyone's working through their own ideas.
right.
um that's like another pressure. This massive side note, but like the pressure
Mm,
of having it all figured out, like at least ideologically on social media. Like, are you this or are you that? Are you
right.
anti-vax or are you like? But most issues are not that black and white.
Right.
um and so when I put out something that I believe in, or something that my opinion on something, or on an art piece or something, um man, correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm,
um that's like I guess that's I don't want to sound like I'm open to everything, because no one's open to everything, but
mm,
being able to discuss why you believe what you believe, that's been like a massive foundation for me, not only personally but even in my work. Why
mm,
I think my creative idea is the best idea, or something like that.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm all good, I guess.
That's good to hear, bro. Question though, I wondered this. I always wondered this. How are you handling being recognized,
Yeah,
in public, uh, especially in Rewa? I mean, out South Auckland. I mean, I know you do a lot of work online, but when you're just out in general public, do people
yeah.
recognize you?
I think I'm more man, that's like a whole another thing. Like I'm like anxious when I go out,
Yeah.
but I think it's more internally than people actually recognizing me. Like I'll probably go to the bakery and people are like, oh, who's this guy? But like in me, I'm just like,
They're probably like, I might probably sound like this. I just saw Canaan Ene. You know that guy? He just bought 3 pies, man. What is this guy up to? I mean, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But do you know,
Nah, yeah.
like anxious? Like, do you worry? That I mean, you were talking about this yesterday. Is it? Do you feel pressure to, I guess, have to always look good and just behave, not that you're acting crazy in public, but you know what I mean, when you're out there, because you do have a brand and you do a lot of work and with local companies and stuff. So is that pressure there, being recognized, or
Yeah.
or you
I
just
think
being humble?
I think I put the pressure on myself. But I guess like I've always had a little bit of tension there, being a pastor's kid. So at school, you're always conscious of that. But yeah, there's been times where like we're walking through the mall, me and my partner, and I'm just like, oh, can we get to the car now? Because people are looking at me. They might be looking at me for something else, but I think, oh, they see my TikToks.
Hey, how do you know they're looking at you and not your partner? What a confident guy.
Nah, yeah. I always look at like see where people are looking, and so yeah, it's something I'm conscious of, and I think I make myself anxious more than I'm pretty sure no
Then you
one's
need to.
actually looking at me, but yeah, probably not on a level as like your brother probably gets all the time.
You'll hear. We're talking about this, man. You're gonna hear it. Honestly, I was just like, this guy. Man, that's it's interesting. You mentioned your partner because earlier on, when you were talking about being your own boss and you know needing someone over your shoulder to kind of like keep it. And I really wanted to go, who's on your shoulder, bro? Who's on your shoulder? Shout out to Canaan's partner. Like I get, my question, that's a side note.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
question is, do you have a team that you work with? I know you're your own boss, but do you have like a close group around you that you can call on, or is it really you're just like a one man doing everything?
yeah. So I have a few like freelancers that I always work with. Um, I have another videographer who works with me, Taylor. So he works on a lot of projects with me. Yeah, I think that we're probably the main core of the work that we do. He's probably on at least like 80% of the jobs that I take. And like whenever he gets a job, I'll jump on his jobs as well. And so I think keeping the team small is less of a I think I'm the man, but more of a trust thing. You want to trust your team to be able to execute well, and someone that is not going to do you dirty. Which unfortunately happens a lot in in any business venture, but like in the creative industry. So yeah, we've worked a lot together. But then yeah, just a lot of associates that I'm wanting to work with, but we're well connected on social media and stuff. Yeah, I like to work with people again. So if I have a good experience with them, if we gel on the job, like I'd work with them again. There's an agency that constantly subcontract to me out in East Tamaki, so we've got a good relationship, and we just work on a lot of the campaigns that I work on for them. So yeah, I think my team is small, but it's the same team, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Just thinking about we keep mentioning clients that you're working with. Like, how do you find this process of dealing with clients and pricing? Like, how do you deal with like different negotiations and clientele? Because tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. I think growing up, I mean, like starting young, it's an easy opportunity for for people to take advantage of you, but more commonly for you to not be confident in pricing right. So I think both happened to me, but the latter was probably the one that affected me the most. I don't know how to price things. If I'm servicing other Pacifica people, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll take it for a discount. Like stuff like that. So I think over the years, I think wedding videography is a good grounding for like how knowing how to price your stuff.
Wow.
Because there's so many wedding videographers. So I think when I started, man, it was hit the good old YouTube, hit the Facebook group pages, just asking people, how much are you charging for this? Checking out all the wedding videography pages, and just sort of gathering what the market price is. But then venturing into the more creative space, freelancing space, I think it was just really like using that wedding videography as a base for like, this is how much my time is worth. And then sort of just adapting it to that new space, because wedding videography is like a day, you shoot the wedding day and you meet with the couple and then probably a couple of weeks editing. But with freelancing, man, you're working around the clock, you're editing at 2-3 a.m. And so quantifying time is probably the hard thing with like pricing, like and I think that's a trap that I set for myself early on. I was like, oh yeah, just gonna work for this like $50 an hour based on 10 hours. Then I ended up working 50 hours on that one project. So
oh my God.
so yeah, I mean it's like that. But I think once again you have to get burned a few times to know what campaigns take, what video take. And I think for me it was calculating. Where I sort of got my rhythm was calculating everything from start to finish. So pre-production, planning, actual shooting, post-production revisions, and then just like estimating in your head how much time that's going to take, how much effort and work that's going to take. And from there, I guess that's sort of where I've gotten like a rhythm of, like a standard in my head, how much I would charge. So I think for me, that's been how I've been able to formulate what I charge. But it's real subjective, man. Like it's hard because you're not really selling a product, you're selling a service. With products, there's like a market value. Apple's here, there's only $1 there, $1.50 here. But with services, man, like there's real subjective. So I think the main thing is you've just got to be confident in what you're pricing. Even if you're not confident, just take it for a lower price so that you know how much, that feeling of like how much work actually needs to take place for a job. So next time I need to charge way more than what I initially thought. So I think my price formulation is still evolving. It'll always keep evolving with the more experience that I have. And I might have it wrong at this point. Who knows? That's why I always ask people, so how much do you charge for this? Or, how much? So it's always like it's that process is always evolving, but it's also trying to find like what everyone else is doing, I guess. And that's why it's good to have friends in the industry.
Amen. Okay, so what's been your most difficult dealing with a client, or in terms of or with a project, in terms of creativity and business negotiation?
Yeah, so Lani, just no, just kidding. No, I think just in a general sense, like maybe the hardest people to work with, or the hardest experiences is when that collaboration doesn't take place. But also also recognizing when your own ideas suck, because in collaboration it's like, no, this is me, no, we should do this. But sometimes it's like, I think internally for me it's like I have to recognize that like art is subjective as it. So if I'm and also I'm not always when I'm making content for the client, I'm making content for their audience. And so and I might not know that audience as well as they do. So I think from my end it's like trusting the client, being open to other ideas, but also trusting the client that they know their audience well. So I think that it's difficult when that doesn't take place. But I don't think, I've had maybe early on I've had some bad experiences. Yeah. There's one you saw that I tweeted about last year.
You're good. No,
But yeah,
no
but
need.
I think yeah, it's just like it's all learning. Hey,
Mm.
that's the thing. And again, like you learn from being burnt, um, never to touch that fire again.
Live and
Yeah,
learn, they say.
yeah,
Live
live and
and
learn.
learn. Okay, so I wanted to ask you about your work on Tue Manu.
Yep.
With if you could share your experience on working with Feumu Matt Anonymous of 37 Hertz and the Lani Alo music team.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like I said, like I've always wanted to work with Lani. We connected maybe a year or 2 years ago. And I think that was even before Alo came out. I'm not too sure,
Mm,
but yeah. So it was definitely something that I wanted to do. And when he contacted me, man, it was like, yeah, finally we can work on something and collab with something. Matt Fayumu, like I said, I knew him from when I was in high school. He was
mm,
doing a bit of music mentorship, and I think he still does now. So yeah, it was a real full circle moment to work with two people that I follow and that I admire their work. Um, I think we were a bit slow at the beginning, just because of COVID. He contacted me in the beginning of the year, and then I think we went into lockdown. But man, it was a mean experience down in Dunedin.
mm,
It's funny, the thing that I buzzed out at the most is like, so our church is not really Samoan, so we didn't really have like a strong cultural understanding,
mm,
or like grounding. Like we still had Samoan values, um, but like I'm not strong in the language or much of the culture. So going to like, and South Auckland is like the most populated Polynesian city in the world. So going to like the furthest city away from South Auckland, the most Palangi region in Auckland or in New
mm.
Zealand, and to have like this rich cultural experience with the Samoan dudes down there. Like we were welcomed with an awa ceremony, and um, everyone was speaking Samoan. Like it was so buzzy. It was so buzzy to me. Like I'm sure Lani told you, like, oh, we had the awa ceremony, and I had no idea what to say. I didn't even bring an ear down with me, so that was funny. But yeah, that was cool being in it's a city that's far from our culture,
Mm,
but yet the culture was real strong. And I guess it sort of made me realize how much we take it for granted here in Auckland,
mm,
that we have all of this, like, Polyfest and Samoan language week and stuff like that, Ministry of Pacific people, because there's just the Pacific Island students down there in Dunedin pretty much, and a few churches. But we have it all in Auckland, and I still don't know how to structure my Samoan sentences properly. Anyway, that's a massive side note. But yeah, working on the song and that collaboration again, that was really cool and crucial to the piece. I think um, it was cool. It was cool coming into an environment where everyone already knew each other, because often in sets it's like you're meeting people for the first time, so you sort of have to like spend a few days with them to sort of gel. But with these
mm,
guys, man, they knew everyone already, and everyone was just ready to work and ready to help out wherever they can, which is quite a unique thing in the industry. I mean, people don't normally go the extra mile, but like
mm.
everyone was on board. Everyone was, from the food to driving, to holding up lights and just helping me out and helping Fayumu out. That was really cool to see it come to life. Um, so yeah, overall, man, it was a really cool experience, and I think it's probably my first. Yeah, it was my first experience working with a director, because
Mm,
in digital content it's like you sort of do everything yourself in terms of execution. So being able to sit under Fayumu and sort of take his direction, I think was it was cool. It was really good for me in terms of gaining skills as a DOP, because
mm.
that's common in the industry, but it wasn't something I was used to. So yeah, real big learning curves, and really good, a really good experience, if that makes I don't know if that justifies everything I said.
Yeah, absolutely. Was that the first time you had been to Dunedin?
Yes, yeah. So we hopped out of the airport, and I could just smell this, like, I don't know what it was, like sheep poo or something like that. I was like, "Oh, what are these guys doing, man?" But yeah, bro, it was so cold down there, but it was like a nice cold, eh? It was like a nice, like, it wasn't windy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
Did you
I
study
love
down
it.
there? Or?
Nah, in Auckland, but man, I love Dunedin. I love
Yep.
Dunedin because when I come home and Auckland is like, bro, Auckland, I feel like they're never gonna finish building those damn highways and roads, you know, the motorways. Every time I come, my dad's like, "Oh yeah, here's a new extension." I'm like, extension upon another extension upon another extention.
They
Like,
mean extension for the time they take to
bro,
move.
you know, for real, man. You know, Auckland, to me, I get the road. I hate going to Auckland. Like, if I can get away to Dunners for a few, you know, for a weekend or
Yep.
whatever like that.
That's right.
I'm
She had
gonna
family
go.
down there, right?
Yeah. So, man, Auckland is just road rage. Lots of crazy people. People are just so loud.
Yeah.
It's like when it's always culture shock when I come from Japan to home, because then I hear loud, you know, because here you can't. I mean, we have islanders, but we're not like doing the whole like islander laugh, because you know you gotta like
Different
they
environment,
can't be
eh?
doing that, man. But as soon as I come there, I'm really conscious of like we're so loud.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just busy and that kind of stuff. So, you know, yeah, that's Auckland. That's the Auckland I think about when I come home, and I dread it, eh? But of course, you know, family is there. So, anyways, enough of my stories. What are some misconceptions that people have about what you do as a creative, as an artist? Like, what are some, you know?
Yeah, that's a good question, eh? I think because it's sort of like a new space that I'm in. Like if you work in TV and film, those are things that span 30, 40, 50 years, right? But with like digital content, it's a really new space. So I think there isn't a pathway for us. We sort of just have to make it up on the spot. And I think like I would call myself a content creator, but then like someone like Just the Norms is also a content creator, and he's doing mean, but we don't do the same thing, if that makes sense. So I
Yes.
think people maybe mislabel me as a content creator when I do a little bit more than that, if that makes sense. So yeah, but I mean I don't blame anyone because it is a really new space, so it's sort of hard to exactly define what I do. That's probably the main misconception. I mean, it's not a big one, but every time someone asks me like, "Oh, what do you do?" It's so hard to like give them an answer. Do I tell them I'm a videographer, or do I tell them I'm a, do I tell them I'm a photographer? Do I tell them I'm a DOP?
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, I think that's probably the main misconception, or I don't know, mislabel.
Yeah, because even trying to write an introduction, like, how am I going to introduce Canaan? So I'm on your website, but then I'm on your TikTok, but then I'm on your Instagram, and I'm like,
Oh man, I need to update my website.
I'm like, man, this guy is like, I don't know, he's an all-rounder of things, and it's like, because you don't want to box people, you know, you don't want to be like putting labels on them and then shame. It's not even their job title, you know. I was like, yo, let's just
hold on. And that's the thing, like,
lays it down.
I think someone asked me like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "I'm a creative." And they said, "Oh, what shows have you done?" So, like, thinking like it's like performing arts, but yeah. So yeah, it is real hard. I think, I mean, it doesn't bog me down too much, but I just sort of just struggle to tell people what I do.
Man, what do you do? I want to talk about TikTok. Man, to everyone listening and watching, this guy,
man.
man, you know, I always used to be like, I always used to be like my brother, I will not cross over to that dark side, TikTok. I will not cross it. And then like about, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, I was like, yo, I'm gonna get an account. I'm just gonna chuck all the podcast stuff on there, whatever. And now I'm just like, man, I just love like watching the dancing. I follow the dancers, and then just the music, like singers
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Not those like viral dancing trends and like actual dances and stuff.
Are you
It's
sure
super.
you're not? Are you sure you're not?
Nah, bro, I didn't get. I'm not into that. I just honestly, I'm watching the real dancers, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
man, I've seen your account on TikTok, and I was like, man, you have such a huge following on there, and it's so interesting, looking at your videos and stuff that you posted. But I want to talk about this one thing that I really was. It made me think so hard. I was like, ouch, my head hurts. This idea that every song is a reggae song. This idea, or I guess this fact. I mean, after I watched your videos and people's responses, I was like, yo, actually, that could be very true.
Yeah.
Tell us about this idea or fact that every song is a reggae song. How did that even, what were you doing that you decided one day that you were gonna do that?
Yeah, I don't. Let me just actually check which one was my first one.
Yeah,
Um,
because
yeah,
man.
yeah. So I like obviously we grew up in like the islanders in Auckland. Like every new song that comes out, you can
Right.
guarantee like two things: there's gonna be a Samoan version and there's gonna be a reggae version, or it's a Samoan reggae version together. So like I don't think what I do is anything new. Like people have been doing it for ages. Like DJ Noise,
Yes.
so many of the other DJs, 651.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think it's. Hang on, let me just check. Sorry, I should have done this before.
No, you're all good. Gotta
Anyway,
fact check and everything.
so yeah, it's not anything new, but I thought like, oh yeah, I'll just make some reggae stuff like just for fun. And what's it called? Yeah, we so like at Peptoy High when I was there, well, we played reggae all the time. It was just
Mm,
like everyone plays reggae. I think Kolohe Kai came out when I was like in primary school.
yeah.
So yeah, we entered Pacifica Beats, which was like a
I was
reggae
going to ask
competition.
you,
Yeah,
did you do Pacifica Beats?
yeah.
Ooh,
So I mean like reggae is all around.
yeah.
And so it was something that I was like making in high school, but I never really posted much. And actually, when I changed schools, I sort of deleted all of my reggae songs. Didn't want anyone to stalk me before I entered the
Did you
school.
did you did you start listening to like white boy bands or something? They're like, hey, Fall Out Boy and that kind of stuff, huh? Right?
Nah, nothing like that. And so I think I joined TikTok on my fiance's birthday.
Mm,
And then I started posting reggae stuff. Like my followers weren't popping off. I was trying to think of like a series to do on TikTok.
right.
So I think like in January this year, I just thought, oh yeah, let's turn a song into a reggae song. And it was actually like I'm pretending to do it on my keyboard, but I had already made it before. And then so like and I posted it, just wanted to see how it was going. And then it popped off, and it was mainly like New Zealanders because I did
Yeah.
Benny's song "Super Lonely," which is a New Zealand artist. But then the second one I did was a Paramore song, and man, that like
Yes.
went viral with like the overseas
Yeah.
Americans, um, and like they're like, whoa, reggae, like reggae is rock. But to us, hey, it's normal. It's normal to hear a reggae remix or like a fob remix of songs. But to them, they're like, Ozers. And I think that's the cool thing about TikTok is like, man, heaps of cool things that we find cool in New Zealand or this side of the world is like doing mean as overseas. Like the siren jams and stuff is popping off overseas. And so I guess I'm the same, but on a much smaller level. So yeah, from there it was like the only thing that was working. I tried post up like my videography work after that. The stinky ass. So I was like, all right, we'll just stick to the music. We'll stick to the music on TikTok and yeah, and then that's pretty much how it went. I just keep posting reggae stuff. Like it's really nothing to it. It's the same chords, the same drums. I just take the acapella, change the tempo.
You make it sound so easy, but that's what got me is when I was watching and I was like,
What? This guy makes it look so easy, and then you're on your like bass guitar, on your get and stuff, and I'm like, come on, man, not everyone can do that. And then that's why I want to know, like, what instruments. I know we talked earlier. You were saying you're in a band. I mean, you've been in a band through school. You did Pacifica Beats. What? How many instruments do you play, and which is your favorite?
Yeah, I probably jam the guitar the most at the moment. But guitar, piano, a little bit of bass. Yeah, when you grow up in the Fa'ili at church, you just sort of just
Bro,
play little bits
you
of
play
everything.
drums? You
Yeah,
drums or
real basic drums.
yeah?
I played cello in primary school and intermediate,
Oh,
and high
brother.
school as well. Um, but yeah, those instruments are a bit too expensive to have at your home. So
Man, that's so dope, bro, for real. Would you ever go like would you ever take on music full time? I mean, I know you're like, yeah, nah, I didn't do this and that, but bro, you are super talented. So would you ever like go full time in terms of being a musician or producer?
yep,
Is that something you've
yes,
considered?
definitely. Yep, I've always wanted to. I think my mum, like back in the day, like released a bit of music with her siblings. So that was what I wanted to do before like video and stuff. So when I
Right.
said like I want to be like a producer, she was like, "Oh, we already have one of those in the family," kind of thing. So it sort of shut down my dreams. So I mean, luckily I had something else that I could do. But yeah, it's definitely something I've always wanted to pursue.
Right.
And it's been cool to sort of get that. Oh, validation is probably the wrong word, but like the response online through TikTok to like
Yeah.
see like, oh yeah, I probably could still jump back into music, and do
Bro,
it. Like there's a
man.
there's a few gaps in my knowledge in terms of production. Like even we
Right.
were recording with Lani on Saturday for something else here, and I was telling him, man, I don't even know what I'm doing. But nah, it's cool. I actually enjoy music way more than I enjoy, or not way more, but more than I do videography. So yeah, who knows? I might jump back into it full time. I'm still doing like a few small projects here and there,
Mm.
for a few artists, but nothing major. But definitely something I want to do.
That's cool, man. And perhaps along that line, maybe drop an EP or album sometime in the near future.
I have to find a singer first.
auto auto tune. No,
Auto
no.
tune everything, man. I got one
Everything.
of those voices that sound mean like in a choir.
Oh, yeah, bro. I feel you. I
Found
feel
out by
you.
everyone.
Are you a bass singer?
Nah, I'm a whisperer.
Oh, you're those ones in the back. You're like mouth moving, no
Yeah,
no
yeah.
sound. You're funny. You're a Kanye West fan.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, and I only knew that because of your tweets.
Oh yeah. Sorry
With
about
his
that.
album that dropped there, I was like, oh, there's Canaan again. Okay, I'm gonna start reading his tweets all about, man. Tell us about Kanye. I mean, how long have you been a fan of? I mean, reading your tweets, I was like, this guy's been a fan forever. Like, what do you like about Kanye West's music?
I think I like artists that do something like very original,
Mm,
but also do yeah. So probably two things. I like artists that do things that are very original or like unique to them, but
mm,
also to like someone who documents their work. And so
mm,
that's Kanye. That's also like Ryan Leslie,
mm,
some other. There's a lot of guys that have documented their work process quite well. And for
mm.
me, like I see these guys who are famous or successful, very creative, very unique, and I'm always wondering like, how did they get to where they are now?
Right.
So for someone to like anyone, I mean even Fayumu does that with his socials. Like we
Mm,
can see how he makes stuff, how he breaks down stuff, how he ideates stuff. And so I think those are my favorite artists, people who are original and can and have documented their work. So Kanye, I
mm,
actually only like discovered his stuff maybe 3 or 4 years ago, um,
mm.
online. No, I was on a Michael Jackson buzz for ages. He's another guy who's like got heaps of documented stuff online for ages, and I still am. And Kanye West did a remix to one of his songs, and then from there I like looked at
You're like
Kanye stuff.
hooked.
Yeah. So yeah.
No, I can't get Michael Jackson. I'm like wondering what kind of Michael Jackson music we into, like everything. I was just caught me off guard, man. Caught me off guard. I wasn't prepared for that. Oh man, bro. Dream. If you could collab with any artist around the world, like musician or a group, a musical act, who would you collab with?
Oh man, I don't
Just
actually see
one.
a question. Yeah.
Just one.
I think I can't actually think of one actually, but I think like one of my dreams is to follow someone around, like
For the day, like to just kind of like
as a career. So like for example, Justin Bieber has a videographer. His name is Rory Kramer, and all he does is he follows Justin Bieber around, takes all of his photos, takes all of his videos, films his music videos, and sort of documents his creative process and his life. And again, it comes back to like what I was saying before. I like artists who are able to document their journey. I think for me, that's like something I've always wanted to do. Follow an artist, like could be anyone. Yeah, I don't know. There's heaps of artists whose socials are stink. That I'm like, man, I know you do mean stuff. I know you do mean stuff, and people need to see that, like how creative you are. I'd love to, like, So I'm not too sure who that is, but it's one of my goals to, like, just create content for someone. Follow them on a tour. I don't know. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't really answer your question.
Anyone out there who is listening, you know who you are. We have this super talented brother right here. Connect with him, man. Right here. The one and only Canaan Ene. Oh my goodness. Self-care, I mean, we've talked about the pandemic and how you've been coping. Do you have a ritual or process before or after a shoot or like project or editing session? In terms of self-care, do you kind of like, if for example, if you do a job, like a project for a couple of weeks, do you do something to totally wind down, or are you kind of like onto the next? How do you look after yourself, bro?
That's a good question.
How do you look after yourself? Like, downtime. What's Canaan doing, for downtime?
Yeah. I think, if I'm honest, it's probably an area I've neglected, not fully, but, it's probably an area I could take care of a bit better myself. But I think I find a lot of de-stressing or weight taken off my shoulders by like chatting to people, especially my partner. Just being able to, like, when there's something frustrating that you need to tell someone. So I think that's always been a good like stress relief and like looking after myself after a shoot. And it's a lot of, because I work, a lot of the campaigns that I do as well is to do with mental health. So for example, last year during COVID, we did 13 videos interviewing people and their COVID experience. And I have to sit through all of those and just listen to their stories. And then I have to edit them as well. So I'm constantly listening to traumatic events. And so in our line of work, there's steps that are put in place by the government because it's government work, where we're offered free counseling sessions up to 10 hours. And that's just due to the nature of the campaigns that we work on, which I'm thankful to COVID that there's been breaks where I can just like sleep, like there's actual times where I can turn off, that I haven't actually had to take up those counseling sessions, but they're there, which is like a good comfort. But yeah, it's a mixture of both, knowing that there's something in place, but also knowing that there's people around me that I can chat to about something that I'm going through. Yeah, because a lot of the work in that mental health space is heavy. It's real heavy. Um, and yeah, just got to be mentally resilient, that you're not like trying to relate too much, that you think about their traumatic event and you try and put yourself in their shoe, or you try and relive their traumatic experiences through your own like mental. So um yeah, I think it is a lot of just turning off, switching off.
Mm.
Yeah.
Man. Do you have any other hobbies besides obviously what you're really good at doing? You know, like are you secretly a really good baker or a cook or something like that? Or no, you're not. Okay.
uh
I just
oh,
you
I didn't
know,
say anything.
like or do you draw or like
Yeah.
what other hobbies do you have? Or fishing or
Hobbies. I don't know if you call it a hobby, but um I really like theology.
mm,
So like reading up about, especially like Christian history. There's 2,000
mm,
years of Christianity, and we think we've got it all figured out, with like
yeah.
the last 23 years that I've lived. So I think actually, like, yeah, it sounds like a stink hobby, but a lot of my spare time is like reading, watching videos, listening to podcasts around this faith that I say that I believe in. So
Mm.
um, yeah, I don't know if you'd call that a hobby, but it is what I do in my free time.
No, it's thank you for bringing out theology because I did see it on your which bio was it? Maybe it was Instagram that you need to update. I think it said da 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 in theology, or maybe it was Twitter. Anyway, I did see theology on one of your bios, and thank you for bringing it up because I wanted to ask you. No, not a stink response at all to the question. I think it's great. So then books you mentioned, you like reading up on theology. Um, do you? What's something you've read lately, or some a favorite book that you have? Um,
Yeah,
share
the
with the
Bible.
audience. Yeah, bro, why not,
um,
man?
nah, yeah, I think like again, it comes back to like sound bites I was talking about before.
Mm,
And I when I say everyone takes sound bites, I think we do that
mm,
with the Bible as well. So like in church we check out all of these like sayings or phrases, and
mm,
like for me, I think I've made it like a mission to like think, oh, where in the Bible does it say that? Or where did you get that from? Because we take sound bites from everywhere and we think it's like that's what it's actually saying, or that's what this verse is actually saying, when actually it's not. So I think um, actually like studying the Bible, reading it in context, reading commentaries surrounding the Bible, has been really key for me in terms of coming to an understanding of scripture and texts. A book that I read um, is The Case for Christ, which is
mm,
by Lee Strobel. He's a journalist, and he sort of examines the historicity of Jesus, not only as a historical figure, but talking about the case for him existing, and also for the claims of the Bible that said what Jesus did. So it's a cool foundational text in terms of um, I guess identifying Jesus, not just as a mystical figure, or a figment of imagination, but even if you deny him as a god, is still a historical figure. um, that's been a
mm.
cool book that I read recently. um, I just started reading a book by Tuya Tua, um,
Nice.
Whispers and
Mm,
Vanities, or Vanities and Whispers.
mm,
And it sort of notes down religion in Samoa, pre Christianity. Um, just interested, just to see what I mean, to see what it was like before the arrival of Christianity in Samoa, and just to like a lot of scholars, and also like indigenous scholars, will often quote Tupua and his work. So I've just been reading it just for understanding.
mm.
Um, what else have I been reading? Yeah, I think those are the I don't know. Well, I guess they're not what I'd recommend, but it's just what I've been reading.
That's cool. I mean, there could be some, people watching and listening, who looked that up. We've had such a range of book recommendations, and no, that's cool, man. Thank you for sharing. future aspirations, when we think to the future, what's in store for Canaan? What's in store for Canaan Ene?
Yeah.
In terms of your craft, music, you've mentioned already, videography, content, and that, your job, your business. What's in store for you? What are your plans, or what would you like to see happen in perhaps 5 years' time? Or
Yeah, cool. So I think I've always been working towards forming a video production company.
hmm,
Sorry, or like a content agency would probably be a better term. We started one last year, me and my mate Taylor. But then it's just been a bit hard to keep it afloat with COVID. But I think that's the goal with the goal that we have in mind, just forming a company that creates content for a living. From there, like, I mean, the sky's the limit, I guess. I'm sort of, yeah, just figuring it out as I go. But that's sort of where we have within the next like 5 years. Um, I don't think it's not the only thing I want to do.
yeah,
I just don't know what I want to do. Like I don't want to be stuck doing one thing, but I'm
right.
yet to figure out what the other things are.
Okay, and then you've mentioned your fiance. Shout
Yep.
out again to Kenneth's fiance. Is marriage going to be soon, like in turn, or is it the pandemic is kind of messing that up, or you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's soon. I think we'll just go ahead with a lockdown wedding. But yeah, we're
Oh,
we're sort of just planning towards it, and
mm.
it's like we're planning 5 different weddings, like a level 2 wedding, a level 3 wedding, and then this green light, red light stuff is coming next week. So
Yeah,
yeah,
what is that, man? I caught a snippet of maybe a tweet or something. What is that?
I have no idea.
How would
I
they
thought it was like
manage?
something from Squid Games, red light and green light.
Oi! What? I didn't even, man. How would they, like? How would they manage? How would they control that in terms of?
Yeah, I
I
have no
mean,
idea.
we only need to look at the people who are abusing their work pass or whatever that was, over the weekend. Let's not just slide it in there. But man, it's crazy. Auckland, what is going on, man?
It is crazy.
Bro, it's not looking good. Oh, actually, there is something else in terms of looking into the future. I know you've mentioned a few things already. Would you ever become a minister yourself, do you think? Perhaps years down the line? Is that something that you've I don't know, wanted to do on top of everything else that you're already doing?
Yeah. So I sit on the pastoral leadership team at church as it is.
Mm,
But in terms of like a pastor, I think I'm drawn more to apologetics, which is not a term that we chuck out um in our churches nowadays, but it's sort of like apologetics is like dealing with defending the faith from like theological, philosophical, historical standpoint.
mm.
Um, so I think if anything, it'll probably be to do with something like that. But yeah, I don't think a pastor or anything. I'll leave that to my parents.
Never say never. God's plans could lead you down a
Yeah,
totally
that's the
different
one.
path.
That's the one.
Just saying, just saying. Okay, so we're now at the part of the show where I'm just going to say a few more words, Canaan, and then I'm going to hand it over to you to drop some more gems, maybe some words of wisdom, words of encouragement, just for our listeners, just for those looking to pursue a career, whether it's in digital content, creating content, or just any career path or pursuing their goals. So before I give you the opportunity to do that, I just wanted to say, bro, I am super, super grateful that you came through. Honestly, I didn't even think you'd say yes. Bro, no jokes. See, when I was talking to like the team, and they were like, man, this guy, like I mentioned, man, they really love your work, bro. They have so much respect for you. And
Oh,
I
so
saw you when I was back in Auckland, and I was
yeah.
buzzing out when Lani was like, Canaan's coming, as if it was like just another guy, and I was like, you mean Canaan? The guy, you mean Canaan, like famous Canaan of social media? Man, I was buzzing out when I saw you, but I'm so humbled,
Wow.
really honored that you were able to come through today, and I just so know that a lot of what you've shared is going to resonate with people, and perhaps even maybe help some people who are interested in um, doing what you do. It's going to help them, take that next step. So, I just want to say, all the best to you and your fiance,
Sure.
and God's plans for you. And I just look forward to continuing to follow your journey, bro. It's super inspirational. You're the man. Keep doing what you do. Keep inspiring,
Thank you.
and keep taking South Auckland to the world, because people need to know, bro. Straight up.
Sure.
So
Nah, thank you for that.
over to you, bro.
No, nah, thank you for having me as well. I think if we didn't meet at the studio, I probably would have said no, but nah, nah.
Appreciate it,
Nah, but nah, thanks heaps for having me. Like, if anyone's like listening, I think like the main takeaway is to be confident in your own abilities, to be confident in what you put out there. Because I know, like I know even for me, if I listen back to what I've said, like it might sound like, oh, this guy's a cocky guy, but like, because it's not natural for us as Samoans to like talk highly of ourselves. But I think that's the way that that's the way that you succeed in this world, is that you are confident in your abilities and you're confident in what you're able to provide. So yeah, I know it almost seems unnatural for us to think highly of ourselves or to be confident in our abilities, but man, that's the way to go. That's the law of the land, I guess, or at least creatively.
Yes, for real.
So I mean, you're a perfect example. You're teaching in Japan, and like you're not even in South Auckland, so it's so cool to chat to people who are succeeding on different spheres and outside of Auckland. Yeah, so keep going to the podcast and to anyone listening as well.